Okay, guys, this is Brian again with River City Outdoors 85. I am back with you for part 2 of this catfish reel video that I started. In this section of this video, we're going to go over some catfish reel comparisons, or some comparisons in relation to reels that I am using for catfishing versus other reels that are commonly used for catfishing. We're going to kind of weigh the pros and cons of them, and I'll give you some really good detailed information in regard to what I like and why, and what else is out there that's being commonly used and so forth. To start with, anybody who has any, real amount of experience with catfishing, some amount of knowledge in regard to what's out there in terms of catfish equipment and what's very popular and widespread in use and so forth, knows that probably the most popular catfish reel or reel that's being used for catfishing, probably in existence, is the Abu Garcia Ambassador. Now, the Ambassador, like other reels, comes in quite a few different variations. However, when you look at their website, and when you look at Amazon, where they are for sale, or any other retailer that sells them, one thing that you'll notice is that they have quite a few different models, but a great deal of their models basically have the same specs. So you're going to see that here with my breakdown and kind of giving you guys, the information about the Abu Garcia Ambassador reels. You're going to see a lot of similarities here. So the first thing I did was I took down, accurate information directly from their website as far as the specs and stuff for their reels. And, based on research and reviews and all that stuff, the most commonly used Abu Garcia Ambassadors for catfishing are generally the C3, which is kind of the baseline model, and then the C4, which is a little bit better quality model, and then within the C4, you have the basic C4, which is the blue and gold one. The C3s are generally silver and black. And then you have a model called the Catfish Special. And the Catfish Special comes in two different sizes, as you can see here. I'll break that down, for here in just a second. And then beyond the C4, you have another one that's called the Catfish Pro. Okay. And those are kind of the most commonly used ambassadors for catfishing. Now, there are people that are buying some of the other ambassadors and using them for catfishing as well. Because there are some alterations to the C3 and the C4. And then where the Catfish Special comes in two sizes, a 6500 and a 7000. There is also just a plain red 7000 Abu Garcia that has the exact same specs as the Catfish Special. The Catfish Special just has, it has a catfish, I don't know if that's painted on or engraved on or, wherever the finish is on that reel, but it's got a catfish on it, and it says Catfish Special. And then the same thing applies to the Catfish Pro model as well. So we're going to kind of break these down so you can see the specs on them and all that. So we're going to start with the C3. Okay, so the C3 comes in two sizes. The 5500 and the 6500. Now, they share the same gear ratio at 5.3 to 1. They're not ambidextrous reels. So when you buy the Abu Garcia Ambassadors, you have to buy it specifically left or right-handed only. As you can see on the retrieve, left or L or R only means left or right only. So you have to pick one. Max drag is 15 pounds. And the line retrieval rate is between 25 and 26 inches per handle turn for full rotation. And of course, the gear ratio of 5:3 to 1 is what is determining that. But, well, along with that, the size of the spool and some of the other parts on the reel help determine that along with the gear ratio. The 5500, the difference really lies in line capacity because it's, the size of the reel and the size of the spool and all that. So the 5500 on the top end shows it will take on 240 yards of 12-pound monofilament or 235 yards of 30-pound braid. And naturally, the 6500 is larger. It will take 325 yards of 12-pound monofilament, 320 yards of 12-pound monofilament, and 310 yards of 30-pound braid. So obviously the 6500 has more line capacity than the 5500. Okay, now we're going to move on to the C4. And as you can see on my notes, the 5600 and 6600 C4 have the same specs as the 5500 and 6500 C3 respectively. Now, in the C4 Catfish Special, the 6500 again has the same specs as what we just listed for the C3 6500. So the 6500 Catfish Special, same line capacity as here on the 6500 C3. Okay, and it's also the same gear ratio and the same line retrieval rate and the same drag at 15 pounds. Okay, now the other version of the Catfish Special that's available is the 7000 size. So that does change things, because now you have gone to a lower gear ratio of 4.1 to 1. You still have left or right only retrieval sides, so you still have to pick. It doesn't change that. It's not ambidextrous. The max drag goes from 15 pounds to 20 pounds. And the live retrieval rate, because the gear ratio is lower, drops to 22 inches per rotation. Now the capacity is larger because this is the 7000. This is the biggest ambassador that they make, by the way. The 7000 size is. There is a 7000, as I stated before, in a few other reel offerings from Abu Garcia. They make more than one 7000 size reel, so you don't have to just buy the Catfish Special to get a 7000. Like I said, they have a regular like red one in 7000, and there might be one other one. But the 7000s, that's the thing, is they all have the same specs. So they all have a 4.1 to 1 gear ratio and 20 pounds of drag. They also have all the same capacity. So your line capacity bumps up by going to that 7000 Catfish Special. As you can see here, you got 230 yards of 25-pound mono. And you have 360 yards of 50-pound mono. So that does bump up the capacity quite a bit in comparison to the 56 or 6600 C4 or the 5500 or 6500 C3. Okay. Now we go to the Catfish Pro model, okay, which is the last one I listed. Like I said, these are not the only ambassadors that people are using for catfishing, but these are the most common. So the Catfish Pro is essentially a variation of the C4. It is a little bit higher quality reel like the C4. The C4 is a little bit fancier, a little bit higher quality reel than the C3, and the price reflects that. And same thing with the Catfish Pro, because it is a little bit fancier, a little bit better model. The price is higher on it as well. There's definitely a price difference between the Catfish Special and the Catfish Pro. There's only one model in the Catfish Pro. It's a 6500, and it shares all the specs as the other 6500 and 6600 reels. So when you get to 6500, all this stuff applies. Same gear ratio, same retrieve, same max drag, same line retrieval rate, and same spool capacity. So what really changes with the Catfish Pro? Well, as some of you know, some Abu Garcia ambassadors are made in China, and some of them are made in Sweden. And of course, everybody really wants the Swedish-made models because they're just, fancier, nicer, and better made. The Catfish Pro is one of the Swedish-made models, like most of the more immaculate C4s. So that makes a difference in the price as well. Okay, so now we're going to jump to another page of some information that I have here for Abu Garcias. Okay. Now, we're looking at prices. We're basing the prices off of Amazon, okay? This is current today's prices on Amazon. All right. So we start with the C3. The 5500 is $149.95, and the 6500 is $160.87. We go to the C4. The 5600 is $169.95, and the 6600 is $179.99. Now we go to the Catfish Special. 6500 is $188.95, and the Catfish Special 7000 is $219.95. Then we get to the most expensive model on the bottom, which, as I said, was the Swedish-made model. That's the Catfish Pro 6500. It's $259.99. All those reels are fairly expensive. As far as, just good basic catfish reels go, yeah, they're fairly expensive. The cheapest, obviously, being the smaller of the two C3s. And that's still right at $150. Okay. And then I've got my notes here. All of these reel models have their carbon fiber matrix drag system. They all have the 6-pin centrifugal brake, and they all have a synchronized level wind system on them. Okay, so that you get a nice level winding of the line back on the spool as you reel the line in. Okay. So, and those are all standard features on all of the Ambassador reels, because even though they make some smaller and cheaper options for the Ambassadors, the Ambassador is not considered a budget class reel, so they put all the quality features in pretty much every model. So they're, it's not like, some reel companies will have, well, this reel is essentially identical to this one, but it is cheaper because it has X, X, and X features instead of Y, Y, and Y features that are on the more expensive model. Excuse me. So there's not really, as far as the quality and the features and options on the Ambassador reels, there's not really like a low tier, mid tier, and high tier. They're all higher tier reels as far as the quality of them and stuff is concerned. It's just that, like the C3 is just not as, immaculate as the C4. And Of course, the Catfish Special is a little more decked out, and the Catfish Pro is like the most decked out. So, I mean, there's just enough things about all these reels to make up for these price differences that you see. Obviously, when you go to buy a catfish reel, you consider the price as, one of the first things that you're looking at. And then, of course, if you're smart, you're looking at the value, the overall value. Like, what are you getting for the money that you're spending? And really, whether you got a lot of money in your bank account or a little, it's still something that we should all be looking at, because nobody likes getting ripped off, and nobody likes paying more money for something that they shouldn't have to. So I'm trying to show you guys all these things so that you can understand, where the value is and where it isn't when it comes to, looking at catfish reels and deciding on a reel to purchase and all that. And that's why I've taken the time to write all this stuff down, so I can show you guys, exact specs and exact, prices. So, all right. Now, that's all I have for the Ambassador reels. And the main reason that I took all this information down for the Ambassador reels is because, as I said, that is essentially the number one catfish reel out there. That's the one that everybody wants, or everybody has got, or what have you, as far as bait casters are concerned. Now, there's some newer bait casters out there that are becoming more popular, but, still, the Ambassadors still pretty much have the, biggest corner on the market. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare what we just went over with the Ambassadors to 3 very common, very widely available spinning reels that are great catfish spinning reels. And then we're going to compare, what is essentially like the gold standard for catfishing reels, the Abu Garcia Ambassador, to these 3 spinning reels that I have picked out to show you guys the specs and the prices on and all that as well. And then that way you're going to be able to get a little more of an understanding of why I prefer spinning reels over casting reels. Now, there are plenty of people out there that are the other way around, and I'm sure that there are plenty of people out there who would love to give me a bunch of slack or crap or whatever over, my decision to run spinning reels for catfish instead of casting reels. But I'm at least going to show you why I'm doing that. So we got 2 sheets here. I had to break it into 2 sheets because I couldn't get all the information on the one sheet. So we'll start with the first sheet. Okay. So I got 2 pin reels here on this sheet. The Pin Battle 3, which is still very widely available. You can still buy it brand spanking new off of Amazon, and it's still on their website. Even though the Battle 4 has come out, they have not gotten rid of the Battle 3 yet. And I don't know if they're going to or not. But it's still widely available. You can buy it right now from Amazon. And they don't show like an exuberantly limited quantity of them at the moment or anything. So I'm guessing Pin's still making them. But they have a tendency to do that. They have a tendency to, if the previous model was a really good seller, then they keep making it. Before they eventually phase it out, they make it for quite a while after they introduce the newest iteration, and in this case, it's the Battle 4. Now, there's not a lot of difference between the Battle 3 and the Battle 4, and that might be why they're still making the Battle 3, because the only real difference is a few seals, as far as, keeping salt water out and such. So some people might rather have the Battle 3 because they're not so worried about the extra seals. So they may still continue to sell Battle 3s for quite a while. But either way, they are widely available. They're out there aplenty right now today. So, As I've stated before, when you get into the larger, heavier duty saltwater class spinning reels, there's two sizes that I prefer to run. I don't feel that you need to run anything larger than a 6,000, unless you're running a larger, longer rod, of course. And you could still get by, like you could get by with a 10-foot rod and a 6,000 reel. But if you bought the 10-foot rod because you want to up your casting distance, then having more line capacity, like say with an 8,000 size, would probably be beneficial to you because you are going to have more line on your spool. So it would make it easier for conducting further distance casting. So, there's a place for everything, but the majority of the rods I'm running are between 7 and 8 foot long. The majority of them being 7.5 foot long. So I don't need or want anything on those rods over a size 6,000. And a 5,000 is great as well. So I have, for the Battle 3, the specs for the 5,000 and 6,000. We're going to start with the 5,000. So the gear ratio is 5.6 to 1. It is ambi retrieve because you can switch the handle sides on one of these. You don't have to order it specifically left or right-handed. Then the max drag is 25 pounds. And then the line retrieval rate is 36 inches per turn. Okay. And then your capacity. The 5,000 Battle 3 will take 135 yards of 20-pound mono or 240 yards of 40-pound braid. All right. So then we go to the 6,000 pin Battle 3. You again have the 5.6 to 1 gear ratio. It's still ambi retrieve set up, so you can do right or left-handed reeling. Still have a max drag of 25 pounds, but your line retrieval rate has gone up from 36 inches to 41 inches per turn. And of course, your capacity has gone up. So now with this reel, with the 6,000, like that reel exactly right there, it will hold 210 yards of 25-pound mono or 335 yards of 50-pound braid. The prices on Amazon right now today. The 5,000 model is $121.64, and the 6,000 model is just less than $8 more just less than $7 more at $128 even. Okay. Now on my notes for these reels, the Penn Battle 3s have the new CNC cut gears. It's either 5,000 or 6,000 is where that starts at, but I want to say it's 5,000. On 5,000, it is all brass gears. On the Battle 3s that are smaller than that, like the 4,000 and down, one of those gears, I'm trying to remember which one, is CNC cut aluminum instead of brass, but the larger models have all brass gears and heavier duty gears as well. Both the 5,000 and 6,000 and the Battle 3 have their carbon fiber HT100 drag system. And they have a all metal body and side plate. Now, this reel does have a graphite rotor, but it is a heavy duty graphite rotor. A really well made one that can handle a lot of stress and pressure. And the main reason that most of these companies are running graphite rotors is because it helps reduce weight. And graphite is a very strong material in terms of, what it can work against in terms of weight and pressure and stuff like that. So it's a graphite composite, and it's a very good one because those rotors are really, really strong. And Penn's not the only company to make a larger saltwater reel with a graphite rotor, because Daiwa's been doing that for a very long time with a great deal of success, I might add. So, yes, there have been models made with metal rotors, but those nowadays are a lot fewer and further in between for the sake of weight reduction and not really sacrificing anything in terms of overall durability. So there's the notes on those. Now, when we get down here to the next pin, and these two models, the reason that I have them listed, they are two of the three most popular pin and Daiwa reels, period. Like two of the highest selling reels that Penn has on the market right now. People are buying them for all sorts of fishing, freshwater and saltwater alike. And the reason these two rod models or reel models, are so popular is because they come in sizes up to and surpassing 8,000 in the case of the Battle 3, because I believe they make it up to a 10,000, and the Penn Fierce goes up to an 8,000 for sure. They're both all metal body and side plate reels. They both have good, seals and bearings and stuff in them to resist salt water, stuff like that. They're, for their size and quality, they are a very good buy. Especially considering what they're capable of doing for the money. So, there again, we're looking at, value as one of our criteria, if you will. So, we get down to the Penn Fierce 4. Okay. Now, because they're both pins, and we're, again, talking about 5,000 and 6,000 series reels, the specs are the same. Okay, for the Fierce and the Battle, all the specs that we listed for the 5,000 and 6,000 are identical to the 5,000 and 6,000 on the Fierce reels as well. The 5,000 has an Amazon price tag right now of $104.95, and the 6,000 is $114.99. Both of those are very reasonable price-wise, and the Battle, or not the Battle, but the Fierce 4 reels are really good reels. We have a couple of those here, and we really like them. So that's good. And then the notes, okay? A lot of people are like, well, if the Fierce has all metal this and this does that and the HT100 drag and all that, then what really makes the price difference between the Fierce and the Battle? Well, here's part of that. As you can see in my notes down here, it says that the Fierce is running cast gears. So they're not running the CNC, the newer CNC cut gears, from what I can see. The Fierce does have the carbon fiber HT100 drag system and the metal body and side plate. So it's primarily the better quality of gears and maybe a couple other things that make up the price difference between a 6,000 Fierce at $115 and a 6,000 Battle 3 at $128. Not a lot of price difference, but I'm sure there's just enough added to it to where they decided they had to charge more money for the Battle than for the Fierce. But there's always been, since those two reel series have been out, the Battle series has always been more expensive than the Fierce, and there's always been very little difference between the two of them. At one time, the Battle series had the HT100 drag system in it, and the Fierce still had oiled felt washer drag discs in it. And that's, since changed. So now they're very similar reels in terms of makeup and specifications and all that stuff, and form and function for that matter. And they are both very good buys as far as saltwater spinning reels for the purpose of catfishing are concerned. Okay, so now that we have gone over all the information for the Penn Battle 3 and Fierce 4 reels that I have collected, we're going to go over the info for the third spinning reel that I have gathered for this comparison. And this reel is a very common and popular reel as well. One of Daiwa's best sellers, and that is the Daiwa BG. The BG's been around for a long time. It's been through quite a few different iterations where they've changed little things on it here and there, but overall it's pretty much the same reel as it's been for a long time. The two sizes that I would personally recommend in a BG for catfishing would be the 5000, which is not the same size exactly as a 5000 in either of the pins. As I've explained in a previous video, spinning reels are not identical in size from one manufacturer to the other. So there's no like set standard, across the industry, that states, well, all pin 5000s are going to be identical in size to every other manufacturer of a 5000 spinning reel. So in the case of the Daiwa BG, the 5000 is a little larger than the 5000 pin. It kind of sits between the 5000 and the 6000 pins. And as I've said before in a previous video, Daiwas tend to have deeper spools. So that lends itself to, having a little more line capacity than your average 5000 size spinning reel as well. So we're going to show you the specs for the 5000. The gear ratio is 5:6 to 1. The line retrieval rate is 47.4 inches per full handle turn. It does 22 pounds of drag, and of course it's ambidextrous because you can switch the handle from one side to the other. For line capacity, it will hold 280 yards of 20-pound monofilament and 310 yards of 65-pound braid. Now we go to the 6500 Daiwa BG, which is larger than a 6000 pin, but not as large as an 8000 pin. So that still lends itself to, being put on most of the, popular catfish spinning rods out there without being, too cumbersome in size. Gear ratio for the 6500 is 5:3 to 1, so it's slightly lower. It's got a, it's ambidextrous on the retrieval side, just like, the other spinning reels that we're talking about here. It's got a line retrieval rate of 48.7 inches per full handle turn. And it has a max drag of 33 pounds. So it's, it's actually got the most drag capacity of any of the three reels that we have listed here. The line capacity for the 6500 is 260 yards of 30-pound monofilament or 330 yards of 80-pound braid. So again, it's got a deeper spool that lends itself to a higher line capacity. Your prices on Amazon as we sit today, the 5000 is $141.98 and the 6500 is $145. And on my notes, the BG has Daiwa's DigiGear system, which is a digitally designed gear that is made to mesh well with all the other gears and create more positive gear contact. They're also larger gears, by the way, on the Daiwas. The DigiGear is like the ring gear is quite a bit larger than this, your typical average ring gear for a spinning reel of the same, size category. It's got their carbon fiber ATD drag system, which is auto tournament drag. Their drag system uses a proprietary grease that is less viscous at the start and gains viscosity as the drag is being applied and pressure is being applied to the drag. That helps to fight fish without wearing out drag washers prematurely and or damaging the drag system and all that stuff. So that's one of their proprietary things that they do with their reels. And that's available on, quite a few of the other Daiwa saltwater reels as well. And then, of course, it has a metal body and side plate. And like with the Penn, Battle, and Fierce reels, it has a graphite rotor. I didn't put that in the notes, but it does. You can see that on their website or whatever. They call that the air rotor, is what they call it. It's, a lightweight, heavy duty, high strength graphite composite rotor. So very similar to what Penn is using on the Battles and the Fierce reels. I'm using all three of these reels for this comparison because I have all three of these reels. I have used all three of these reels, and I really like all three of them, and they are a very good value as far as, heavy duty use saltwater spinning reels that have a very good, price tag on them. So now that we've gone over all three of these spinning reels and we've gone over the information on the Abu Garcia Ambassador casting reels, we're going to get to the next part of this comparison where I have made a chart here. And we're going to use the information for the reels that we have to show you where I've come to these conclusions on this chart in comparing the spinning reels versus casting reels. I've kind of broken this down by category to compare, which reel is better in what category. And in some cases, neither reel is better. And that's kind of where we start off at, with availability. Okay. The Ambassador reels from Abu Garcia are pretty widely available. You can definitely score them off of Amazon and a bunch of other websites out there. And then, the Daiwa BG and the two Penn reels are also widely available. So I'm, kind of calling that a toss-up. When we get to cost, though, I'm giving that to the spinning reels because they are less expensive. When you look over here at costs, the most expensive of these three reels is the 6500 Daiwa BG, and it's only $145. Well, when you look at cost for the Abu Garcias, over here on this side, the C3 5500, which is the smallest of the ones I have listed and the cheapest of the ones I have listed, is $149.95. So it is still more expensive than any of the three spinning reels that we're comparing. And the price on the Ambassadors goes up to $259.99, which is more than $100 more. Okay. So in terms of cost, you got to give it to the spinning reels because the casting reels are more expensive. Now we're going to compare gear ratio. In most cases, when we look at gear ratios, you're at 5:6 to 1 for both of the Penns and 5:6 to 1 for the 5000 Daiwa BG. And you're only at 5:3 to 1 on the 6500, but 5:3 to 1 is the standard gear ratio for the Ambassadors, with the 7000 Catfish Special being lower than that. So in most of these cases, the spinning reels have a higher gear ratio. So that's why we're giving it to the spinning reels. They're often higher, whereas the casting reels are often lower. Okay, so line retrieval rate. It's quite a bit higher on the spinning reels. That's why we're giving it to them, because when you look, you're at 36 inches on the 5,000 pins and 41 inches on the 6,000s. And then on the Daiwa BG, the 5,000 is 47.4 inches and it's 48.7 on the 6,500. So when you go over here and you look, you're across the board on the ambassadors, you're 25 to 26 inches per handle turn. So your line retrieval is quite a bit higher. And why that matters is when you are fighting a fish, the amount of line that you're taking in per handle turn is, of course, partially determined by your gear ratio. So having a higher gear ratio helps you to have a more line retrieval rate. And doing that means you can fight a fish more efficiently, because, for every bit of drag that fish peels off your reel and takes some line back out, when you start bringing line back in, you're gaining on him faster than he's gaining on you. And you will get that fish landed faster and more efficiently with a higher gear ratio and a better line retrieval rate. Okay, so both of those things are important when it comes to fighting fish, especially a trophy class fish. All right, so then we go to drag capacity, which is also important. How much drag can you apply if you need to apply drag pressure to, to fight a fish off the bottom, or to keep a fish from running any further or any harder or anything like that? There are times, when you turn your drag down because you've got it set too high, but then there's other times you don't want to, snap your line or whatever, but then there's other times when you want to be able to turn your drag down, turn it up, or tighten it down, turn it up. So having more drag capacity is better. And we're going to give that to the spinning reels as well, because when we look at drag capacity on the pins, you got max drag of 25 pounds across the board for both of the models, the Battle and the Fierce models. Okay, and then when we get to the Daiwa, you got over here on the 5,000, you have 22 pounds of drag. And on the 6,500, you have 33 pounds of drag. Well, when you look at the ambassadors, the majority of them have 15 pounds of drag. Only the Catfish Special 7,000 has more than that, and that's only 20 pounds. And that's less drag than any of those three spinning reels. So you gotta give that to the spinning reels in terms of drag capacity, okay? Because they have more. Now in line capacity, again, same story. We got to give that once again to the spinning reels because they have more line capacity. When you look across the board at line capacity and how much line capacity you have, in the case of these 6,000, like the 6,000 Battle 2 and Fierce 4, or Battle 3, I'm sorry, and Fierce 4, you can handle 335 yards of 50-pound braid, or 210 yards of 25-pound mono. When you look over here at, well, let's go to the Daiwa next. You can hold 310 yards of 65-pound braid on that 5,000, or 330 yards of 80-pound braid on that 5,000. When you look, or on that 6,500, when you look at your line capacity over here, it might require doing some, calculations and stuff, but on the average, without a doubt, the spinning reels have more line capacity. Because like even you look at the 7,000, which is the largest of the Abu Garcias we have listed, it has a drag capacity it can hold, or I mean a line capacity it can hold 230 yards of 25-pound monofilament. Okay. But when we go over here to the Daiwa BG, which is quite a bit less money, I might add, you have 260 yards of 30-pound monofilament. And that's versus 230 yards of 25-pound monofilament. Okay. So you have more capacity, 260 versus this 230, of larger diameter monofilament. Okay. So you definitely have more line capacity with the spinning reels. That's just all there is to it. Now, quality, durability, and reliability, those are all kind of subjective because, you know, what is it? What is the quality in comparison to? What is the durability rating in comparison to? And what is the reliability rating in comparison to? Well, all I can say is I know for a fact that all three of those spinning reels and all of these ambassadors over here are made well. They're good quality reels. And they're durable and they're reliable. There is no doubt about that. They've proven themselves. All of these reels that I'm comparing right now have proven themselves to be all of those things. Okay. So I'm giving that to both of them equally because, I mean, you know, one person could come along and say, well, you know, the Abu Garcia Ambassador is more durable than any of those three spinning reels. And they might be right, but they might be wrong. Okay. So, you know, we're going to say that's subjective. And we're going to say that all of those reels are excellent in terms of those categories. Okay. Now, we're going to look at overall value. Okay. What are you getting for the money that you are spending? Well, we've kind of already gone over that because when we look at things like availability, cost, gear ratio, line retrieval rate, drag capacity, line capacity, all the features that matter on these reels versus the price. Well, when you consider the fact that the spinning reels in most of these categories went out over the casting reels and they cost less, it's undeniable that the spinning reels are a better value overall than the casting reels. So they're the best, and the casting reels are the worst in terms of overall value between the two types of reels in this comparison. And then overall performance. Well, I mean, I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with quality, durability, and reliability, but, you know, just the overall performance. How do these reels perform out on the water when you're catching catfish of all kinds and sizes and everything else? Well, we know without a doubt that the Abu Garcias perform well, that they're an excellent performing reel. And we know that these reels all have a very good reputation for performing well. The Daiwa BG is, again, one of their most popular reels. And the Penn Battle 2 or Battle 3 and the Fierce 4 are two of their most popular reels. And there are plenty of people taking all of these reels out on the water and proving how good they are all the time. So overall performance is excellent for both of these, for both the spinning reels and the casting reels. Okay. Now, is there better and worse out there on the market than what I'm comparing here? Yes, because there are cheaper casting reels that are crap, and there are cheaper spinning reels that are crap. There are also more expensive ones of both types that are really good and better. But for something that is more affordable and common, something that you can just, you know, go and order on Amazon and have it here within a few days, these are all very good options as far as catfish reels go. And That's why we're comparing them. Okay. So if you take a look at this chart that I have here, and you see where spinning reels went out in the majority of cases, now you can kind of see my reasoning behind preferring spinning reels over casting reels. Along with that comes a couple other things that I did not mention in this chart, or I have not mentioned yet. Some of that is subjective because it's kind of opinion based or preference based, and some of it is not. The whole debate between which is better for catfishing, spinning reels or casting reels, is kind of like the Ford and Chevrolet debate, you know. As many things are. You kind of have two things that are like the crown of achievement. And they're sitting on opposing sides. And so you have these debates on which is better. That's a normal, common thing, right? So, as far as the types of reels that are available for catfishing, again, here we go. We got your spin cast reel and your spinning reel and, an example of a casting reel. Without a doubt, the spin cast reels are not in the conversation because of reliability and durability issues in comparison to the other two. Okay, so there's no doubt that they're not in the conversation. But spinning reels and casting reels are definitely in the conversation, and that's what you're left with as far as good options for catfish reels. So I'm going to point out a couple other things that I haven't mentioned yet in terms of, differences between spinning reels and casting reels. And, at the end of the day, everybody's going to buy what they want for whatever reason it is they want it. But I feel like at least putting this information out here will help a lot of you make decisions if you're on the fence about these things. At least, you've got me to, do this research for you, get the information and the pricing and all that stuff so that you can, at least maybe get further along in your decision-making process. So, a few other things before I close this video out. Comparing spinning rods to casting rods. Number one, most of us nowadays are either full-on using circle hooks, or we're at least experimenting with the use of circle hooks because they're a very successful hook for catfishing, okay? Especially when you use them right and you tie them correctly and everything else. Well, one of the things that goes hand in hand with using circle hooks is using rod holders, okay? And therein lies the difference between spinning reels and casting reels, because spinning reels sit on the underside of the rod. When you put a spinning rod and reel combo into a rod holder, it sits kind of more naturally in that rod holder. Whereas when you put, a hefty casting reel that's sitting on top of the rod, and you put that combo into that rod holder, well, gravity always has an effect on everything at all times. So what happens often, and I've seen this many, many times, is because the casting reel sits on top of the rod, it makes that rod top heavy. And instead of sitting there nice and straight in your rod holder, that casting reel will cause that rod to tip over to one side or the other. So it won't always sit in your rod holder exactly how you want it to. And it's a pain in the butt. You move them back to where you want them, and then they slide over to the other side and all that stuff. It happens all the time. You don't deal with that with spinning reels. So there is another advantage with spinning reels is how well they sit in rod holders. And then there's other things that, can be argued about up one side and down the other that are just totally subjective or opinion derived. Um, Casting distance. If casting distance matters to you, the fact of the matter is that in the majority of cases, spinning reels will outcast a casting reel in terms of casting distance. I mean, if you look at casting competitions and what these guys are out there doing, surf casting, doing the pendulum casts and stuff like that. I mean, spinning reels can cast some serious distances. And this is a me factor more than anything. But I find myself having a much easier time with casting accuracy with a spinning reel than I do with a casting reel. And I think a lot of that is not so much due to the fact that there's any actual issue with a casting rod and reel combo in terms of casting accuracy, so much as it is you're so concentrated on the function of the reel and trying to keep the thing from backlashing so you don't have a huge mess on your hands, that I think it kind of naturally messes with your. Sorry, I had a notification pop up that I was shutting off. It kind of naturally messes with your casting accuracy because it's on your mind, having to deal with the reel. So, and there's another thing, that I just said that I'm also going to mention is backlashing. Okay, backlashing, bird's nesting. As I said earlier, the professional overrun, whatever you want to call it, is something you will never deal with a spinning reel ever, because they simply do not do it, because the spool does not rotate during casting. Okay. The wind knots, as I mentioned earlier, on one of the cons for spinning reels, wind knots, they suck when it happens, but that's not an all the time thing. It's not like every spinning reel out there just wind knots all the time, nonstop. It doesn't. Just like not every casting reel, does bird's nest all the time, nonstop. But I can assure you of one thing: I've dealt with wind knots and I've dealt with bird's nests, or backlashes, or whatever you want to call it. And I would much rather deal with a wind knot than I would with a backlash, because a backlash is a total dang mess. So, you be the judge of that and which one you'd rather have to deal with and how often. But if you're like me and you've dealt with both issues, you'd take the wind knots over the backlashes all day long. Especially the backlashes, the bad ones that have the big blow up where there's just line all over the place and all over the reel and all that stuff, because it kind of rocketed backwards and just tangled up and everything. Those deals suck really bad. But one of my biggest considerations in all of this, in terms of my choices for the casting versus spinning debate, is it's just that spinning reels are so much easier to use. I can cast them further and more accurately. I never have to deal with backlashes, and I am getting more value out of what I'm buying with spinning reels than I would be out of casting reels. They're just a better value, because you're getting more and better features and better specifications for less money. With that, I'm going to close this video. I've enjoyed making this video for you guys and doing the research and coming up with the information and the pricing and all that, so that I could share it with you. I'll definitely be making more videos like this, to help you guys out and put the information out there so you can see it. And if you like this video and you want to see more videos like this, I'm definitely going to be making more videos talking about this kind of stuff. There'll be another video coming up shortly on the next subject that I'm going to be talking about in terms of catfishing equipment. So stay tuned for that. Give me a like and a subscribe. I'm on YouTube. I'm on TikTok and Instagram. My handle names for all of those networks is River City Outdoors 85. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.